The story of the Knights Templar begins long ago. It starts in the Holy Land, a place of great importance. After the First Crusade, Christian armies had captured Jerusalem. Many people from Europe wanted to see this holy city. They were called pilgrims. They traveled for months, facing many dangers. The roads to Jerusalem were not safe. Robbers and bandits hid along the dusty paths. They attacked travelers, stealing their money and sometimes their lives. It was a perilous journey. The need for protection was great. These faithful pilgrims deserved to travel in peace. A French knight named Huguet de Payens saw this problem. He and 8 other knights had a simple idea. They wanted to create a special group. This group would be made of warrior monks. They would live like monks, praying and living a simple life, but they would also be soldiers. Their mission was clear and noble. They would protect the pilgrims on their dangerous journey to Jerusalem. In about 1119, they approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem. They asked for his permission and blessing. He agreed and gave them a place to live. Their headquarters was on the Temple Mount, a holy site. This new order was called the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. This name was soon shortened to the Knights Templar. At first they were very poor. They had no land and very little money. They relied on donations to survive. Their famous seal showed 2 knights riding on a single horse. This image represented their initial poverty. It also symbolized their brotherhood and shared purpose. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They were dedicated to God and to their mission. Their white mantles, marked with a red cross, soon became a symbol of their devotion and courage. Their purpose was purely defensive at the start. They were not an army meant for conquest. They were a small police force for the roads. The Templars would patrol the dangerous routes. They escorted groups of pilgrims, guarding them from harm. Their reputation for bravery and piety grew quickly. People across Europe heard stories of these brave knights. The Pope gave them his official support in 1129 at the Council of Troy. This papal blessing was a major turning point. It transformed them from a small local group into an international organization, ready to grow in power and influence far beyond their simple beginnings. The Pope's official backing changed everything for the Templars. With the Church's support, donations began to pour in. Kings, queens, and wealthy nobles across Europe gave them money and land. They saw the Templars as a worthy cause. Supporting them was a way to support the Holy Land from afar. Soon the Templars owned vast estates, farms, and vineyards all over Europe. These properties were not just for show. They were managed carefully to produce income. This money was then used to fund their operations in the East. The once poor knights were becoming landlords and businessmen. Their network of properties across different kingdoms gave them a unique advantage. They developed a clever system that made them very powerful. A person could deposit money or valuables at a Templar house called a preceptory in London. In return, they would receive a special letter of credit. They could then travel to the Holy Land without carrying large amounts of cash. Upon arrival in Jerusalem, they could present the letter to the Templars there. They would then receive their money, minus a small fee. This was one of the earliest forms of international banking. It was safe, reliable, and revolutionary for its time. This banking system made the Templars incredibly wealthy. They became the trusted bankers for European royalty and nobility. They loaned huge sums of money to kings to finance wars. They managed royal treasuries and collected taxes. Their preceptories acted like secure vaults. People trusted the Templars because they were monks. Their vow of poverty meant they were not supposed to be greedy for personal gain. This reputation for honesty, combined with their military strength, made them the most reliable financial institution of the age. Their wealth grew beyond anyone's imagination. With this immense wealth came great military power. The Templars were no longer just a small group of bodyguards. They became an elite fighting force. They built massive castles in the Holy Land, like the formidable Chastel Blanc. These fortresses were marvels of military engineering. They recruited thousands of men, not just knights, but also sergeants and staff. They were the best equipped and most disciplined soldiers in the Crusader armies. On the battlefield, they were fearsome. They were often the first to charge and the last to retreat. Their power and influence were felt in both the courts and the battlefields of the medieval world. The Knights Templar operated with a great deal of secrecy. Their initiation ceremonies were private affairs. New members were brought into the order behind closed doors. Only other Templars were allowed to witness these rituals. This secrecy was not unusual for medieval guilds or religious orders. However, it created an air of mystery around them. People began to wonder what really happened in their chapter houses at night. Rumors started to spread. The lack of public knowledge allowed imaginations to run wild. What were these powerful warrior monks hiding from the world? This secrecy would later become a weapon used against them. As their wealth and power grew, so did suspicion and jealousy. People on the outside began to tell strange stories. They whispered that during their secret initiations, new recruits were forced to do terrible things. It was said they had to deny Jesus Christ. Some tales claimed they had to spit on the cross. These were shocking accusations against a Christian military order. Other rumors suggested they worshipped a mysterious idol. This idol was described as a severed head, sometimes called Baphomet. The stories grew more and more bizarre, painting a picture of a heretical cult, not a holy order. These accusations were serious. In an age of deep religious faith, heresy was the worst possible crime. The idea that the Templars, the defenders of Christendom, were secretly betraying their faith was scandalous. It was also said they engaged in immoral acts during their secret meetings. These rumors were often spread by their enemies or by those who were jealous of their wealth. The stories were hard to prove or disprove because of the Templars' own secrecy. Their private world, once a source of strength and unity, was now making them vulnerable to attack. The whispers grew louder over the years. It is important to remember that there is very little real evidence for these claims. Most historians today believe the accusations were false. They were likely invented for political and financial reasons. The Templars had become too powerful and too rich. They answered only to the Pope, not to kings. This independence angered many rulers, especially King Philip IV of France. He owed the Templars a huge amount of money. The stories of heresy and dark rituals provided him with the perfect excuse to move against them. The secrecy that once protected the Templars' inner workings was now being twisted into proof of their guilt. The downfall of the Knights Templar was swift and brutal. The main architect of their destruction was King Philip IV of France, also known as Philip the Fair. The king was deeply in debt, and a significant portion of that debt was owed to the Templars. He also desired a stronger, more centralized monarchy in France. The Templars, a powerful international organization that was not under his control, stood in his way. He saw them as a state within a state. By destroying them, he could cancel his debts and seize their immense wealth for himself. The rumors of heresy gave him the perfect opportunity to act. On a single day, Friday, October 13, 1307, the king made his move. He ordered the arrest of every Templar in France. His agents acted simultaneously across the country, catching the knights completely by surprise. The Templars were thrown into dungeons and their properties were seized by the crown. This date, Friday the 13th, is sometimes cited as a possible origin for the superstition. The king's plan was executed with ruthless efficiency. The arrested knights were then subjected to horrific torture. Under extreme pain, many confessed to the fabricated charges of heresy, idol worship, and spitting on the cross. These forced confessions were then used to pressure the Pope, Clement V. The Pope was a Frenchman and was heavily influenced by King Philip. At first, the Pope was skeptical of the charges. However, Philip's campaign of propaganda and the shocking confessions extracted through torture put him in a difficult position. The king threatened military action against the papacy itself. Eventually, the Pope buckled under the pressure. In 1312, at the Council of Vienne, Pope Clement V officially dissolved the Order of the Knights Templar. He did not declare them guilty of heresy, but he disbanded them, stating that their reputation had been too badly damaged. The end for the Templar leadership was tragic. The Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, and other high-ranking officials had initially confessed under torture. Later, they bravely retracted their confessions, proclaiming their innocence and the innocence of the order. King Philip showed no mercy. In March 1314, Jacques de Molay was brought to a small island in the River Seine in Paris. He was burned at the stake as a relapsed heretic. Legend says that with his dying breath, he cursed both King Philip and Pope Clement, summoning them to face God's judgment within a year. Both men did indeed die within the year, adding another layer of myth to the Templar legacy. Their order was gone, but their story was just beginning.